So what do you get when you combine Iron Man with MacGyver with House? You get this movie. Hello and welcome back to another Midnight Showing. As always, I'm Kelly, and I just got out of The Martian, directed by Ridley Scott and starring Matt Damon and so many other people. It'd take forever to list them all off, so just say big names. Okay, non-spoiler version for those who want. This movie was freaking awesome. It had some logic problems. It tended to forget about things at the beginning of the movie, especially when the ending comes about. I'll get into that when I talk about the spoiler section, but needless to say, this movie was a rush. It was intense. It was awesome. It was very lighthearted and funny. I found myself laughing more in this film than I have at comedies I've had to go see this year. Yeah, that is really saying just how good this movie is. And coming from Ridley Scott, I was expecting this to be very, very serious and brooding, but no, this was actually a lot of fun. And don't get me wrong, the serious moments are really indeed freaking serious. There's an intense moment where Matt Damon, I almost said Mark Wahlberg. Matt Damon has to do surgery on himself and get shrapnel out, and it just kind of reminds you of that scene from Prometheus when she's getting the alien out of her stomach. It's really intense and harsh to watch. But yeah, overall this movie was great. It had a lot of really breathtaking moments, and the hopeful message of it is something that I can get behind, and I'm gonna buy this movie when it comes out. So yeah, go see this movie. End of story. Go see this movie. There's no other way of putting it. But yeah, for those who want to stay for spoilers, let's talk about some of the better aspects, and then go into some of these logic things that just didn't work out near the end. Now, the premise of the movie is basically there's a mission on Mars, the first manned mission. Now, they said it was like Ares 3, so it's probably not the first manned mission, but it's one of the missions on Mars, and a very bad storm threatens to take out their ship that's their only exit off the planet. While evacuating to said ship, Matt Damon gets hit by a bunch of debris in the middle of the storm, and according to all of the sensors, his suit's been punctured and he's dead. He wakes up the next day to find that the shrapnel stuck in his stomach and all of his blood has sealed his suit enough to basically keep him alive. So, he has to find a way of staying alive on Mars long enough for a rescue mission to come. Now, they've stated that he, as far as it goes, that it'll take about almost 4 years to get something successfully to him. Now, for the first 2 years, they focus on just getting him supplies, while they're getting everything else ready, so that they can actually send a mission to get him. So that's what most people on Earth are doing after they find out that he is alive. And they find out fairly quickly that he is still alive because of satellite looking at their base. Satellites is pointed looking at their bases. Notice that things start moving around in erratic patterns, which is a good enough indicator that he's still there. So the whole movie is basically just cutting back and forth between them trying to save him on Earth and Matt Damon saving himself on this planet. And by God, he MacGyvers the shit out of everything. I mean, there's MacGyver and House and Iron Man, and then there's Mark fucking Watney, which is his character's name inside of Matt Damon's character's name inside of this movie, because he does some unbelievable shit. 90% of which takes duct tape. Yes, he has a shitload of duct tape, and it saves his life on more occasions than it probably has any right to be saving his life, especially when storms pass through. I'll talk about that logic problem in a second. But, yeah, he doesn't brood, he doesn't get angry as much as he probably should. Matt Damon is really, really optimistic inside this movie. He's always looking at the brighter side of things. Instead of, wallowing in self-pity, he's over here talking to a GoPro for the logs that hopefully, if he doesn't make it out of here, someone's going to find and give to NASA so that they know that he was alive down here. So he's sitting here talking to the cameras most of the time and making jokes about his crew members who are on their way home because it'll take them about, I think I said 8 months to get there. And it's pretty funny. He comes up with some very, very insightful comments and just all around an upbeat feel. And while he's MacGyvering all of these solutions, like, he only has so much food, and he can only ration it for so long. So he needs to find a way to grow food. His solution for this is that he takes a bunch of the dirt from outside, brings it into his livable habitat, closing off a section with plastic, burning rocket fuel so that it'll make more water to water said soil, which he enriches by making mulch out of his own shit, and then he plants potatoes that were used inside of his rations to see if he can't grow some food of his own. The response to this, he actually does grow a shit ton of potatoes. Enough food for him to basically survive on potatoes until either a resupply or even a rescue mission. Granted, shit goes wrong later and most of that gets ruined, but for him to come up with this very, very clever idea of how to grow food on a planet that doesn't grow food is just one of many different problems he solves throughout the whole thing. And it's not like he just instantly solves it, or he actually does fail in a few attempts. There's a very hilarious moment when he's, as I said, burning the rocket fuel to make water, that he blows himself up. The next scene, he's got these burns on the side of his face and these blisters, and he just sits in front of the camera. So, attempt 1, as you can see, I blew myself up. I don't think I was accounting for the oxygen and carbon dioxide I was breathing onto it, which caused it to ignite and explode in my face, and yeah, I'll get back to work in a minute as soon as my ears stop ringing. And it's just you're laughing the whole time at this because this guy should be like crippled. He should be dead. But no, he just keeps going and he keeps making it work. He makes it work. He's got to get to a site that's almost, I think he said, 300 kilometers away. But the rover can only go like 50 on its battery life or something like that. No, it was like 3,000 miles away, or 3,000 kilometers away. And the rover that he has can only go about 50 kilometers there and back on one battery input. So he's got to figure out some way of getting the rover from point A to point B very, very quickly. He's got to get to that site before they launch to the next mission, which will be in 4 years, but he needs to solve that problem now. He also needs to solve the communication problem because he still doesn't even know if they're going to come after him again. So he's got to go find that. He's got to... Things start going wrong and exploding inside of his habitat. He has to put everything back together, and he's got to keep this supposedly temporary station up and running for 4 years before help can show up. It's enough to make anyone break, and Matt Damon acts the shit out of this. There are moments when you can just see him just wanting to give up, that he's just, the sounds of the storm smashing against his habitat, it's got him curled up in a ball. But yeah, he's sitting here just making jokes and becoming a pirate. It's fun and funny. And I'm probably only talking about Matt Damon's side of this story at the moment because it is by far the most engaging part of this movie. You know that how this is going to end, that it's not going to be some bittersweet, oh no, we didn't get to him in time, or oh no, he had to die to save the rest of the crew, blah, 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 that kind of thing. It's not one of those stories. No, it's beginning to end. You know that they're going to come by and they're going to finally save him. But just how everything can possibly go wrong, goes wrong, and he MacGyvers the shit, and, or as he puts it, science the shit out of this, just so that he can get off this freaking planet. And it's one of the most engaging parts of the movie. Now, the Earth stuff is very interesting and very well acted, especially by the head scientist guy of the Mars missions. What is his name? He played the assassin inside of Serenity. He was also in 12 Years a Slave, if I remember right. But I don't know. I didn't personally like that movie all that much. But yeah, flame war in the comments. Go ahead. Anyway, he's inside of this. He is brilliant. The biggest surprise for me, though, was Jeff Daniels as the head of NASA. Do not believe the trailers. Do not! Okay? The trailers make you think that this guy, that Jeff Daniels, is playing that stupid hard ass who doesn't want to go back and save him because it doesn't cost us. It's not a very good effective plan. No, 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 no. It's that stupid cliche villain you've seen in everything from... I don't even know how to say that. It's a Captain Planet villain. Okay? We've seen this evil corporate business guy in so many things. He comes off as a Captain Planet villain. No. Him as the head of NASA, he wants to save Mark Watney as them, but he is being very, very realistic about this. He knows that it's better to let one man die than to risk 5 more in an attempt to... in a half-baked plan to save Mark Watney. And I mean a really half-baked plan. It's... what they end up doing to save him at the very end. I won't go into the spoilers, although I will say I thought it was absolutely hilarious to have Matt Damon just utter the lines. Well, as long as you don't do any barrel rolls, I think this will be okay. Video games into film. Thank you, Hollywood, for actually paying attention to your fan bases and giving us some things that we want. Just saying. And, yeah, he knows for a fact that it's not just a numbers game. He wants to save him. He wants to do it. But he also needs to keep NASA open so they actually have a chance to save him. He has to... run all this by the public. He has to release all the information to the public because they're not a secret organization. They have to actually try to work around this. And Jeff Daniels is just acting the shit of, is he playing the stern hard ass or does he play the human being? And it's a back and forth between him and Sean Bean as the head of the personnel, who is very much inclined to take the risks. Because the crew will say yes to it no matter what. Because they're the only ones in space that could possibly help with this at the moment. To this very, very risky plan. Versus Jeff Daniels who's saying, no, let's get them home so we at least have 5 people alive from this mission. Versus this, which would probably risk all of their lives. And what they end up doing almost justifies Jeff Daniels' point of view. Because it could have just as easily killed them all. To save one guy. And that's kind of the whole theme of the movie, is that it's looking at the better nature of people as a whole. When all this shit goes down, everybody wants to get Mark Watney home. And I mean everybody. And is really inspiring, especially there's one scene in particular that just sums this entire thing up for me. And why it's probably one of my favorite films that's come out this year. I don't know if I'd put it on the best list though, but it's definitely one of my favorites so far. It's a moment when the Chinese equivalent of NASA, I can't think of who they are see the failed attempt to send Mark Watney more supplies, which that basically resulted in the entire supplies going up in smoke during the launch. You have the head of the Chinese NASA, whatever they're called, and the assistant watching this on TV. And the assistant is explaining that they could actually do something. They could help them save Mark Watney. But they'd have to give up their new rocket that's supposedly faster than anything that NASA's got. They were going to use it for their own planned mission. But if they gave it to NASA... They could get him the supplies fast enough to survive. They end up using it for something else, but that's basically the premise behind this plan. Now, nobody knows about this rocket. Nobody at NASA, only the Chinese government and this and their NASA equivalent know about this rocket. So if they did nothing, there'd be no blowback onto them whatsoever. Nobody would know that they could have helped. And there goes your uncle's munkle, whatever. I said that wrong. I know I slurred. The head gets up and he says, hypothetically speaking, if we were to help, how fast could we get that man supplies? Very quickly. Next scene, he calls up NASA and says, hey, we have something that can help solve your problem. Showing the better nature of that people want to be good or try to do good. Does that always happen? No, we get tyrants, we get bad things happen in the world. Shit's bad. But at the same time, one guy stuck on Mars over your entire NASA project. The world is literally bonding together to try to help save one man. And that is beautiful. Thank you, Ridley Scott. Thank you. I love this movie just for that scene alone. Now, I could sing its praises all day, but I think I should go into some of the logic problems because I have to cut this video a little bit short so I can record another video and get to work so I can edit those while I'm at work, blah, blah, blah. I'll not talk about that later. So, there were some logic problems inside of this movie. Namely, while MacGyvering the shit out of the situations, they seem to forget about certain things that they have at their disposal. Matt Damon especially. I mentioned earlier that he burns some of the rocket fuel from a booster that's left behind so that he can make water. Now, that whole system ends up being destroyed by something going wrong that I didn't really understand why it went wrong. He was just walking back into the habitat and he had that little pressurized system. When he locked the door and went to repressurize, a hole magically just burst in while pressurizing, causing the whole tube to blow open and ripping a hole inside of his habitat, which then he had to, after trying to quickly save himself with duct tape, had to clean completely out, and there's no way that he could start up his crops again because they were all ruined. But after all of that, they finally come up with the plan. He just needs to get to where the Ares 4 site is, and then they'll be able to save him. Now, they get him to the rocket because what NASA does is they send all of these supplies a long time in advance, and then they send a manned mission. That way everything's there waiting for them, and they don't have to hurry and put everything together, or drag everything from the ship and put everything together, and they'd instantly just have a place there. No, they send all this stuff down, and it's already been semi-ly assembled. They just have to move things into place. Kind of like putting blocks together. You know, a couple of Lego blocks together. But he's got to get there to that rocket. He gets there to that rocket, and in order to get it into space so that they can get him, catch him in there and get him onto the ship home, they have to take the weight out of it. And I mean, they had to take the weight out. They took out all the chairs, the freaking panels, the nose of the rocket without the blast shield, and they end up just setting him up there with a freaking tarp over the top. I mean, it's pretty intense. But they forgot that he had jet fuel from the booster from the other location. All he had to do was drag it with the rest of the supplies, add it to the rocket, and boom, he's got enough fuel to break orbit. But again, people are probably going to try to tell me, no, you can only fit so much rocket fuel into that rocket. They can't have another tank. He's MacGyvered the shit out of everything else in this movie. You're telling me he couldn't jerry-rig an extra fuel tank on the thing? He reprogrammed a rover using freaking Pathfinder. You know, that thing that we sent to Mars back in the 80s? Yeah. He hacked his rover so that you'd have real-time communication with Earth. You're telling me he can't take some freaking fuel tank and add it to this rocket ship? Even if he has to put part of the fuel tank inside of the cabin with him, he's got all the tools to actually drill what he needs to and get it in there. I'll admit he probably doesn't have the necessary strength per se because he's on such low rations at the point. He seriously starts deflating like freaking Chris Evans and Captain America. It's pretty hard to look at, but at the same time, it helps show the disparity of everything. So it's a really great move. But yeah, there are logic problems. He forgets that he has this rocket fuel, and that the duct tape apparently can save the world. Because when the aforementioned hole blows up in his ship, after he cleans everything out, he gets some plastic tarping and he just duct tapes the shit out of it. And then another storm hits that night. I'm sorry, that storm would rip through that shit very quickly. I know that tarps are very strong and whatnot, and I'm not denying that, but yeah, no, that tarp is that would not hold. That would hold during the day. That would hold when there's not a storm going around. But when there's a storm, yeah, that shit wouldn't hold at all. So I said, there's some logic problems inside of it. And my mind just can't get over a lot of these because it's just the way that I think. Like, there's some NASA parts when they're like trying to get the Pathfinders to work. They have to somehow connect to the replica Pathfinder, even though they should still be able to just pick up the signal with the regular computers, but it doesn't make any sense. It just expected me to believe that. And for the most part, I did. I'm thinking about these little nitpicky things that came in after the fact. Doesn't change the fact this is a well-directed movie, a brilliantly written one, and an acting storm. You have all these great actors doing great jobs inside of this world, inside of this movie. And might I just say that it's really nice to see Cara Mara inside of a film that is not Fantastic Four. I'm really glad that your career was not ruined by Fantastic Four. Just saying. Just saying. But yeah, overall, this movie gets high praise from me. Final verdict is go see this one immediately. Go see it in 3D D-Box, because I really want to go see this in D-Box. This is this year's Gravity. It's just way more lighthearted. There's a lot of really good intense scenes, especially the climax when they're trying to get him onto the actual ship, when everything that could go wrong goes wrong. So, yeah, go see it. And that's it for me. Did you enjoy this video? Have you seen The Martian? Tell me what you thought about it in the comments below, and maybe we'll get some healthy discussion going and talk some more about some of these awesome moments inside of this film. But yeah, if you like what you saw here, be sure to check out my channel and subscribe. I also have a Facebook page. You can follow me on there at Facebook.com/KellyYoung693. That's going to be in the description before. And then, if you want to, I also started a Twitch channel. I've been posting some of those videos onto my channel over here. Just like my playthroughs, not my one-off Destiny stuff. I'll leave those for when I'm streaming. But yeah, that is twitch.tv/cardmaster9 if anyone wants to follow me there. And be sure to share this video with your friends. Yeah. So, I guess I'll see you all next time.